Good afternoon, everybody. Hope you're enjoying Kit Plus Show Manchester. We've now got a panel for you while you enjoy your lunch, potentially, which we hope will be really interesting and relevant, titled Bridging the Gap. And we're exploring the skills and talent space, looking at the development of the future of our industry. What does it look like? What skills do we need? What sort of changes might be required to make sure that people who are working in the industry right now, but also new talent, are relevant and have the right skills to ensure a successful future broadcast media, entertainment, television, whatever you want to call it, ecosystem. So I'm delighted that I've got a great panel with me today who I'll ask them shortly to introduce themselves. But firstly, my name's Andy. As well as being a broadcast technologist and consultant in my day job, I'm also the chair of a charity called the Rise Academy, which is trying to educate, inspire and inform young people about the diverse array of career pathways and opportunities in our wonderful industry that we love. So I'm delighted to have this panel here. I'm going to ask them to quickly introduce themselves, explain what they do briefly so we can meet them, and then we'll have a chat about this interesting topic. So if I could start with you, Sonny.
Sure, thanks, Andy. So hello, everybody. So my name's Sonny Hanley. I work for ITV, and I am the director of the ITV Academy, which is our accelerated training and development program for internal staff, but we also create entry-level pathways into the industry with a specific focus on people from underrepresented backgrounds.
Great, thank you, Sonny. Next, we've got Eleanor, who's our youngest member of the panel, and she represents the sort of the entry point of the industry. So tell us a bit about yourself, Eleanor, what you're up to.
So I'm a third-year student at the University of Salford, working on my final film project now. So just going.
Brilliant. So final year. That's great. And then with the next to Eleanor, we've got Hannah. So do you want to say hi, Hannah? Tell us what you're up to.
Hello, my name's Hannah. I run Production Futures. If anyone wants to find out what we are, I've got some leaflets downstairs on our stand. We created Production Futures because we realised that the production industry was completely hidden and work opportunities and pathways were not easy to find. We've built a digital community and we tour events all across the UK, meeting young people, and the more young people we meet, the more we realise that talent is everywhere, but opportunity is not.
Interesting. Okay, we'll come back to that then. And last but not least, Chris.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Chris Cooper, the course leader for sports business and sports broadcasting at UCFB, which is just over there to the left of the Lowry, University Campus of Football and Business. We have two sites. We have one here in Manchester and also at Wembley. We do a lot of broadcasting degrees, media degrees in general, and we're putting people out into the workplace who are going to be the future broadcasters and the future broadcast technicians and camera operators, editors, anything to do with broadcast, factually, mainly sport, then hopefully we're churning them out. So in my dotage, I can enjoy great coverage.
Brilliant. Thanks, everyone. So we think this is a really interesting and important topic and not necessarily a simple one either. And we'd like it not to just be us talking, but we'd like to hear your thoughts. So think of if you've got questions, if you've got points you want to make, we'd love to come back to you in a little bit. We'd love to hear from them. This is supposed to be an open conversation, which is really important for our industry. So please feel free to get involved a bit later on. But first of all, we'll start, Eleanor, if I may, with you.
Yeah,
ask about your experience. So you're I guess, 9 months away, potentially, from entering the industry. You're in your final year.
Yeah.
As someone just about looking at the beginning of your career, what do you think the challenges are that people like yourself face in getting into the industry? And what do you think the skills are that you're going to need from your perspective? And do you think you're being given those in your current phase of education?
Yeah, I mean, there are quite a number of challenges that new students entering the industry are facing at the minute. For example, in the industry you hear a lot, it's all about who you know and not what you know. So the issue of social currency is quite a big one. So as students, it's how do we get into touch with people that are going to give us our next steps without making them feel like we're just leeching off them completely. And then if we're not looking to go into employment, it's about where do we find clients if we're looking to go freelance? Do we have to move? Are we going to have to relocate? So these are all very big concerns at the minute. And another one is talent is everywhere. everywhere. Talent, everyone is very, very talented. In my year alone, we've got hundreds of talented people. And for example, I'm somebody that before applying to university, I applied for a BBC apprenticeship, and I got an unconditional offer to Salford, and I'm currently on track for a first, and I didn't even get a second interview for this apprenticeship. It's very, very, very tough. And I mean, skills-wise, here at the University of Salford, we are being prepared very, very well because of our lecturers. They're all in industry, so it's giving us that pathway. But mainly, it is just how we stand out from other people, and the main skill for that we need is being able to speak out and being able to speak well and communicate well with others, and that's something that's definitely being practiced. But without industry experience, it's something that we're going to struggle with being honed. Yeah, I think that's it.
And can I just ask you the money question, which people always think about? You're a student, so you're paying education fees. You're having to support yourself. How much of a barrier is that to entry, particularly in our media and entertainment business, versus potential value of careers and things? Do you think how much of a stopper is that?
Yeah, I mean, it is the monetary expense is a massive barrier because students are they've got their maintenance loan that doesn't even cover their accommodation, and then they're working, and that can only just cover their food. And then the way to get into the industry is through unpaid roles, and unfortunately, that often means that I'm paying. Sorry.
You're right.
It often means that I'm paying to give up my time. So, I'm looking to move out of my parents' house and, get out there, move closer to Manchester so that I'm going to be able to work with clients more freely. But, when I can't even afford, meals and things like that, it's very hard to, travel 2 hours for a shoot that's going to be 12 hours.
And does that stop some students taking up, even if they're free and not paid? Does it stop people taking up opportunity because they have to also sort of maybe get a job as well in parallel? Does that mean it's just really difficult from a contention point of view with your timetable to even find time for those?
Yeah, I mean,
moments?
it's really incredibly hard. I mean, in my third year now, I've got a diary, and every single day for the next 3 weeks or so is completely booked. So aside from all of the course timetables and things like that, even if I did have all of the funds and the time to be going out to these different places, I have to evaluate. This is going to be taking time away from my course. I'm not going to be getting paid. I'm not going to be getting paid. Is it something that's going to be valuable to me?
Yeah, thank you so much. Hannah, you've had some success and are working for a number of years now with not just young people actually, but also people who are maybe transforming, changing careers and things. But what have you found has worked in terms of inspiring and reskilling or upskilling people who want to come and work in this industry? What's been successful? What maybe hasn't worked? And what do you find is your challenges?
I think the biggest learning that we've had over, certainly as something I did, sorry, we used to have these shows, an annual show at a big rehearsal facility called Production Park. We did it every November and invited young people from all across the UK, coach trips. And what we realised was when we were able to take the show on tour 2 years ago, to meet more young people, we also realised how invisible the industry is.
Yeah.
And I think that we started off wanting to help students and graduates into work and find training from manufacturers, but actually this has become a big mission to be more visible. And that's, I guess the biggest learning has been collaboration is helping with that. Companies and also to link not just music industry, live events industry, TV industry, film industry. We want young people to understand that they can work across all entertainment production industries and therefore be employable. When broadcast is perhaps, or film is quieter, there are jobs in live events. The live events industry at the moment is booming. How they can transfer skills and earn money, because at the same point of, yes, is massive value in work experience, there is also a very big difference between work experience and exploiting somebody who would be paid in that role. So, that's another conversation, but we've learned a lot. And there's been I guess our biggest success is finding out how invisible we are, and that's not really a great thing. We're very much, we need to start the hard work now. as an industry to make ourselves more visible.
Yeah, we always say that in the academy. We work in a business where we communicate with millions of people every day through the most popular medium that exists, and somehow no one knows about some of the careers behind the scenes, which is
Hidden
it's
job
almost,
roles,
we're good at it, right?
pathways, you name it. There is a lack, and parents, guardians, teachers, careers advisors, you name it. There are so many, and a lot of students and graduates still don't know where these opportunities are. So that is up to industry, we feel, to collaborate and tell them and signpost.
Brilliant, thank you. Now, Sonny, you wear a unique hat maybe on this panel. You represent a broadcaster, not just a broadcaster, but a significant one who's has a really unique place in the nation's consciousness.
Yep.
So you represent a unique perspective. What are you finding has worked in your role in the academy, in the ITV Academy, to address your ever-changing skills requirement? Because we live in a world that's changing rapidly, right? The only consistent right now, I think, is change more than ever before, both in terms of commercial outlook for the industry, business efficiency, technology, etc., etc. So how do you go about, as a broadcaster, addressing both the need right now in 2024, 25, but looking maybe at your short, medium, and long-term plans, 3, 5, maybe 10 years down the road?
Yeah, so it's twofold, really. So the first thing is similar to what Hannah was saying in terms of we work with schools. We've got a very comprehensive outreach strategy that's really about going into schools, teaching children, sorry, I shouldn't use the term kids, teaching children about the different roles that are available in TV. So often you would hear kids say, I want to be a cameraman or a producer or an editor, but there are so many different roles within ITV that kids can do. And what we often say is, what is it that you would want to be? And often in the schools that we've kind of targeted, it might be manual roles like electrician. And we often tell them that you can be an electrician within ITV. You can be a set builder. And so there's a whole education piece around the different roles that people can do within TV. And we often see that those are the roles that, the skilled roles that we have shortages of. The other side to it is we work with further education institutes and universities to influence the way that they teach their syllabus. So we noticed that there was a shortage in editors for our non-scripted shows. So shows like The Voice or those light entertainment shows. And so what we did is we ran a pilot with Global Academy down in London, and we created a module for their course. It was an optional module that the kids there could opt into if they were interested in TV production. And we gave them some voice footage from the previous series, and we asked them to cut a 2-minute piece, and we got the commission editors and the editors of The Voice to kind of mark their work. So it was our way of influencing what they teach so that when they leave further education, they have a real understanding of the kind of the skills that we're looking for in ITV.
And do you think there's a link between diversity profile of the current industry that we work in? I mean, a lot of people that I've met in my career look a lot like me and look a bit less like the three folk in the middle here, perhaps. What do you think, is there a link between becoming more diverse, attracting more diverse talent, and solving some of these skills challenges?
Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of it comes down to parents' perception of jobs within this industry. There was I think it was a report commissioned by Netflix that said 9 out of 10 parents don't see a career in the creative industry as a viable proposition for their children. So last year what we did is we worked with a couple of schools. It was a network of schools, and we invited teachers in to do a workplace safari. We got them to walk around and introduce them to different areas of the business so that they weren't just seeing cameramen and editors and soundmen. They were seeing people in marketing or people in commercial or people in compliance and legal and business affairs. And so they could then take that back to their schools and their network and then can't spread that message for us, because what we really need to do is demystify the roles that are available in TV, and for the people that might look like me that can have a career in TV.
Yeah, because sometimes you have to see to believe, right?
Yeah.
If you don't
If
see
you
those
can't see
role
it, you
models,
can't be it.
absolutely right, and that's so important. And we found that going around the country, the academy, and I won't segue too much into my observation of social inequality in the school system, but we very much recognise that, both through research and our own first-hand observation, that your point about parental influence, if you go to a more affluent area with more socially mobile young people who have got wealthy parents who've done well well themselves, they may be striving towards jobs which would be commercially maybe higher than where we're pitching ourselves. Traditionally, maybe a lawyer or a doctor or something. And if you go to a socially deprived area, people are very much thinking about what we would call traditional working class skills, building, hairdressing, beauty, whatever. But no, the middle layer where we sit in creative arts, and that bit seems to be the bit people don't understand or recognise.
And that's the area that we put a bit of focus on.
Yeah, brilliant, thank you. Now, Chris didn't totally tell us the full story about himself when he introduced himself, because Chris really wears two hats, which I think is useful for your perspective today, Chris. As well as your role over the road at the university, you're also professionally still to work in this industry. Could you just tell us a bit about that? And then with those two hats on, tell us, what is your perspective on the most critical skills that you believe students need right now, that presumably you're imparting to them, so that when they come into the industry, they're ready for work on day one?
First of all, attitude. It's interesting what Eleanor was saying, that she wants to do these different things but can't afford to. To sum up what I do, over the road or over the water, as the course leader, I'm responsible for the sports business and sports broadcasting. We are producing graduates who can make content, whether it be packages, TV programs, documentaries. This morning I've had a documentary session with third years, and we had somebody from the BBC come over and speak, and they're having to make a 15-minute long documentary. Now, what I think really helps the students is there are three of us who teach on broadcasting. All three of us are heavily involved with a broadcasting background. Another one was a reporter. He was with Sky Sports, and he was with Granada as a presenter for a number of years. And the other one has got a very technical background, and he still works with like Premier League productions, and he's at Premier League games at weekend, working in the truck. He works at tournaments like the Euros, the World Cup. He's doing broadcast liaison, so he's seeing both sides of it. He's seeing it from a technical point of view, and then also from the broadcaster's point of view. And what we bring to it is, as well as the educational background, we can bring that real lived experience. So when Eleanor's talking about having a freelance career, we can talk about how we do that. I've previously been on staff at Sky Sports and at local radio stations and regional radio stations, one of which was just over the water as well. But I've also developed a portfolio career subsequently, which I've then been able to marry in with UCFB. So we can bring that lived experience, and what I still do outside of teaching, I'm a football commentator. I've got a game coming up next week for Sky on the Sky Plus system. Now, there's so many more opportunities for commentators with nearly every game being shown, especially in the midweek games. And we've got one of our students who's doing commentary already for the BBC, but also working for BBC Local Radio over in Hull at Humberside, where I work as a presenter and a reporter as well. So all of that helps me. It keeps me in touch still with how things are being done, and the only constant really has been change. And even in the few years that I've been at Radio Humberside, there's been dramatic changes in format, in production skills, and in styles. And we can bring all of those to the students that we're teaching. And what we can then get them doing is, it's interesting, again, going back to you, Eleanor, because it's really good to have a student here. And one of the first things I say to the students when I first meet them is, what do you want to do? And I go, I don't know. I want to work in the media. I want to work in broadcasting. They don't know what the different roles might be. And then particularly when it comes to doing a TV program, and those who are specifically doing broadcast rather than media or multimedia, they make two programs in the second year. And it might be that they're the presenter or one of the presenters in the first program. Probably the second time around, there'll be a camera operator, or they might be doing the editing or the lighting. And we've just got a brilliant new studio in the process of being built over there as well now, which is a real enhancement to the degree, rather than having to put one together, to actually have a studio so they can then just go in and practice. All right, I want to see how this would look. How does this look with this lighting? So we're preparing them for all these different roles, and then they can specialise, they can decide what they want to do. One of the key things for us, though, is getting them involved in industry and work experience, not necessarily from day one, but certainly from semester one, when they come in straight from school or from college, and they're trying to find their way in the world. Now, a lot of them, they want to work for sports clubs, particularly football clubs. The name of the place UCFB, University Campus of Football and Business.
Yeah.
A lot of people want to work at a football club, but they want to be making content or streaming or whatever for that club, whether it's the club they support or, there's one student said to me last year, I just want to work for a Premier League club. Well, set your sights a little bit lower to start with, go in.
National League, 5th tier, Wrexham, work your way up. 5-year plan.
Exactly. There is such a thing as a career pathway.
Right.
Even Gary Lineker didn't start by scoring goals for England. He had a career at Leicester. And
Can I pick up on your points there, though? Because we both, I think 3 of us have mentioned that the only real consistent is change. And an open question, really, both as an employer, a student, and educators, and you interceding as well, Hannah. What do you think education can keep up with that change, really? Because my experience, and I don't want to bias your answers, but is that education traditionally always feels like it's slightly behind the curve, and maybe just a sort of snappier answer. But do you think, maybe start with Eleanor, do you think that, as be forthright, because we want to address these issues, do you think your course syllabus and the training is really in touch with what you observe of the industry, or do you think it needs to try and find ways to be quicker to keep up? And we'll be fairly quick and we'll go around the panel.
Yeah, I mean, I've not fully been in industry, so I can't give you a fully accurate answer, but I think from my experience so far, we definitely have. An example of that is my lecturers, they identified that there is a rise in analog film being used. So in their response to that, they set up a course and then recruited loads of students to work on the course. And you had people coming in that had been in the industry for decades, coming back into this educational setting to relearn. So I think in terms of that, it definitely is. And I've got a lecturer who recently won an award for coming up with a new experimental film technique. So to be taught by people who are actively pioneering in their fields, it's very valuable experience. It does feel like we are being kept up with the curve as much as possible. Okay,
that's good to hear. What's your experience as an employer, Sonny?
From working with universities and colleges, the caliber of teaching, ex-industry people has been amazing, and I've been so impressed with the kit that we obviously use in industry. They're teaching, their students to edit on Avid and Premiere, which is what we use. So it's a lot better than when I went to university, which was a long time ago. So.
And do you agree? I mean, I expect you do agree, but you see a unique perspective because you still work in the industry very much as well.
Yeah, a lot of equipment is very, very expensive. So we teach the basics, and this is why it's so important to have partners that we can send students to. For instance, like the latest EVS machines for the replays, the slow-mos and everything, you're talking £250,000 a hit. Now, in the best will in the world, we're not going to be getting 3 or 4 of those coming in. We're also not going to be able to have, say, 15 people going out filming a football match that's then being live streamed. Whereas if we can get people into partnership with partnerships that we've got and developing further ones, to actually then learning about those, so they've got the basics, they know how things are going to be done, and then they're actually going and using the real stuff. Don't get me wrong, our studio has got nice cameras, nice lighting and everything, but, we're not spending £10 million on a gallery, if only that we could. I think we need a few more students to be able to spend that, but yeah. No university will be able to. That's why it's so important that they also, I mentioned earlier about attitude, they also then see the real working life rather than just like 4 hours a day as a student. They can see that some days you'll be working 12, 14, 16, 18 hours. Sometimes you might be working 4 hours. Things chop and change all the time. One of our graduates who's now got a full-time job after going on a student pathway, he came back to speak to the students on Teams a couple of weeks ago, and he was saying, I've actually got a 6-hour gap in my schedule now because we were supposed to be going and doing something, but now that's being cancelled because we've actually already got enough stuff, etc. So I'm now trying to find time to fill things to fill my time, which he managed to very, very easily, as Sonny will know. You've got 6 hours, right? Okay, this needs editing, this needs doing, etc., etc., etc. So if they can get into those internships, whether it's with a broadcaster, whether it's mainstream, whether it's a different kind of broadcaster, and we use the words broadcasting, TV and radio, and probably about 4 years ago I started saying, well, instead of TV and radio, I'm saying audio and visual, because podcasting, video and everything, as you know, I absolutely detest the word content because I made programs, I made features and things.
I was going to come on to that.
But that is a word that
Okay, we'll come back to
It
that.
leaves me
I was
cold.
to ask Hannah, actually, because Hannah made the interesting point that we have quite a lot in common with a much broader landscape of industries now, right? And interestingly, partly fueled by the documentation of kit. Some kit, you're right, an EVS is still very, very expensive, but there is a lot of equipment now which is very available and accessible commercially, which just wasn't 10, 15 years ago. Or maybe brands, because they're probably in the room, but you can probably guess some of the brands I'm alluding to, which have enabled a much broader media industry, content industry, and the content creator industry alone. Call it what you want, podcasting, visual podcasting, the YouTubers of this world is a multi-billion-dollar business. Hannah, could you talk a bit about skills readiness from an education point? Just pick up on the last question, but then also talk about, segue into that space, to what you see about the crossover opportunities and how people can crossover, if that's interesting, in times of hardship. We know that it's been difficult with the commercial slowdown and the challenges that ITV and Channel 4, for example, are facing, and the challenges also that you've had with writers' strikes, but also language and barriers to entry around the language we use, I think, is quite interesting. So I've thrown quite a lot at you, but if you could give us your thoughts on crossover, first of all, perhaps, and skills that lead into that crossover.
I think asking an 11-year-old, an 18-year-old, or a 20-year-old what they want to do is such a broad question.
Yeah.
So I don't think many could answer. And saying I don't know, if you've got an ambition to be a director or a presenter or a camera person, whatever it is, great. But actually, I feel, I've been working with education institutes for the last 10 years. There is a disconnect because we didn't feel like industry was meeting young people early enough. So if it is that they're not introduced to industry till year 2 or 3, that was too late for us. We meet 11-year-olds who want to be audio engineers. They've got YouTube, they've got TikTok. They know way more. We can't underestimate young people. And the language they use is content creation. It is. So get with the program, Chris. But whatever it is, you have a lot to teach them. They have a lot to teach you. That's how I see it. I learn so much from young people, and I just want them to absorb every single part of production, whether that's whether it is using something like Glastonbury as an example of a broadcast live event. Let's look at all the roles within that. It's a live event with loads of amazing bands and artists. It's also got loads of different stages. It's got a broadcast team that run every stage. They all work together. A lot of it is about terminology and jargon.
Yeah.
Same kit sometimes. It's same kind of roles, but they're just called different things. And we really want industry to share with educators and students and young people as early as possible that they could work across industries. So the education and industry link, I just feel needs to be stronger.
And language is a funny one because we always, when we're doing the Rise Academy workshops, we still expose the young people to terms exist because we can't get rid of them. Even though people have come and gone, and we've gone through generations. Phrases like VT still persevere. Phrases like grams to refer to sound effects still exist, which mean absolutely nothing, I'm sure, to some young Eleanor shaking her head.
No, me neither.
But I'm interested, how much of a distraction or an opportunity is the mass emergence of the content creator industry to the media, the professional, creative arts sector? Because on one hand, I was watching a video the other day of a guy who is a content creator in America, and he interviews slightly older rock stars, shall we say, people like Sting. His YouTube channel has got 4.75 million viewers, and he's got over 1 billion hours of viewing on YouTube. These numbers are huge. Broadcasters would dream of audiences like this. And he made a really interesting point. He made a visual podcast talking about how successful he is in the concept of the YouTube economy overall. And he revealed, having looked through his stats, that even despite having 4.75 million subscribers and 1 billion views, on the overall rankings with YouTube, he's only the 17,434th most successful person.
Right.
So the numbers are mind-boggling. So there clearly is a lot of people making some money in a successful career, but at the same time, do you think that the people who want to be, the wannabes let's call them maybe, that's a good thing? Or is it distracting and unhelpful because maybe they won't all make it to the same level? Do we have to be clear about the messaging about the opportunity for real success in this industry? Or actually, is there much more opportunity because of that broader economy?
I think success looks different for everybody. If
Right.
you want to be a YouTuber, go for it. I mean, I meet sound
But I mean,
engineer-
with a view to our industry being sustainable and bringing in new
But
talent.
what is our industry? It's so broad, right? Why is it not the same? Why is it not a level industry? It's broadcasting, live streaming content to people to consume. How it's delivered, or whether it's on a phone or a £5 thing you bought on TikTok or a £7,000 camera, it still delivers the same. If it's going to an audience, then that's content creation. I feel like there's a bit of snobbery, possibly, with certain, influencers or YouTube. Like, that's where young people are going to learn, right? They're going there before they even get to university. They're going there the minute they get on social media. They're absorbing information. So that's why whatever path they want to take should be respected.
What do you think? Do you see that as a help or a hindrance on these people that have all these amazing access to kit and content creation?
So I think that these platforms do a wonderful job in their own individual right. You know, if you talk to someone like me in ITV and my bosses, they will say that simultaneous mass reach is what we do best, and we can hit 5 million people in one single half an hour. That probably YouTube that can't necessarily do unless there's a celebrity boxing match or something like that. So, but again, there's YouTubers that are just talking to their fans, and they're getting more viewers than a 9 o'clock documentary that we might put out. You know, so they all do things in their own individual right, and they are all successful. And you're right that success is different to different platforms. But I think this is a really good time to be in the industry. You know, I kind of wish that I was starting my career again in the industry with the amazing kit and the amazing ways that you can reach people. You know, when I was growing up, you could only reach people through 3 channels, and now there's so many different ways to reach people. And I think platforms and broadcasters are just trying to find the best way to get those eyeballs to their content, and so it's quite exciting. I mean, maybe not if you talk to the CEO of ITV to say all this competition, but it really is exciting and it makes people up their game. So it's a fun time.
Eleanor, 2 questions really. So back to our accessibility point in terms of language and phrases. What you're still really at the beginning of your career and you've been through this. So do you perceive this confusing and outdated jargon as a barrier? We've talked today, do we describe ourselves as, I mean, it's the point, do we describe ourselves as broadcast? Do we describe us as media? Do we use the word TV? Are we content? What is the right vernacular these days? Is that a problem? Is that a distraction? Is it off-putting for people of your age? Or actually, again, does it scream opportunity because of the breadth?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really hard because, you know, I've done my fair share of like volunteer work. I'll come on a set and already I'm very, very nervous, feeling out of my depth and things like that because there's all this equipment that I don't know, and then I hear people use terminology that I'm not familiar with, and it does make you feel quite small. It is really hard to work around and things like that. But I don't think that it being outdated is necessarily an issue. I think it's just maybe transferring those terms over into modern education just to make those terms a lot more accessible.
I think it's a problem in prospectuses and course names because you can't use all the names. So how do you find the right language? Is my observation working with some of the universities is how do you put the right language on? Yeah. And Solent, as an example, changed their course name from TV engineering to event engineering, to your point, because you can work in big events and concerts and all sorts of things.
But why does it need the word event or TV? Can't it just be production?
It could be, but they weren't finding the right people.
Right.
It's a real-world recruitment challenge, to be honest. So,
yeah.
The skills gap, we've talked about it a little bit, is understood and well-renowned. What do you think we need to do better as an industry? This is an open question, so I don't know who takes it. What do we collectively need to do better from all the way through the media supply chain, from broadcaster, facilities and companies and production companies and all the other people that work in the industry? What do we need to do better to close those skills gaps, do you think?
I think from my point of view, just kind of what we've been doing, and that's really working with education and executing our outreach strategy around the type of roles that people could possibly do when they enter the industry. At the moment, students and kids don't know what they don't know, so it's kind of up to us to kind of educate them on what they can do, letting them see that it's not just about kind of what they see on screen or how it might get there, but all the other kind of support roles and ancillary roles that are involved in the TV or broadcasting or media and entertainment division, whatever you want to call it, in order to get that picture to their eyeballs. We just need to educate them on those roles. And so that's what we've been doing in the academy.
Have you got particular areas? You employ a very broad church of different types of job and career, as you mentioned. Have you got areas which are particularly under-resourced that are a challenge for you?
Yeah, so the academy has been going since February of last year, so we've been going about 20 months. The academy was set up originally to address the skills gap shortage in the industry within production. So 2-3 years ago, there was very specific jobs where there was a skills gap shortage, and so we launched the academy to focus on those roles. Consequently, we then opened it out to look at all different roles within media and entertainment. But yeah, specific roles that we focused on were things like post-production, so editors and assistant editors, location directors, showrunners, the mid-level really, what we call they're behind the camera, but below the line roles. Sorry, that's the phrase I was looking for. That's what we tended to focus on, but we've opened it up a bit more now that, there's, like you said, there's a downturn in commissioning, so it has allowed us to kind of look a bit broadly.
Yeah. And Chris, you got a view on that? And also, is this the right time to ask you what the link is between football and netball? Or is that a later question?
Ask me that in just a moment. Just going back to the skills that are required. We have big careers events and different conferences during the course of the year. We've got 3 basic academic centres, one of which is media, which encompasses media, multimedia and broadcast. I personally like the word broadcast, even if it's going on YouTube, because it is being broadcast as opposed to being written. It's being cast to a lot of people, all right, as the actual definition of it. So whether it's radio, traditional radio, podcasting, whether it's video, television, film, it's still being broadcast.
I'll let you answer. Would you call it broadcast or would you call it streaming? If you're watching on YouTube or on a modern platform?
If I'm watching it on YouTube, I'd call it streaming.
Okay.
If I'm watching it on TV, it's broadcast.
Okay, carry on.
All right, okay. But it might be that you're watching something, you're streaming, that's actually also a live broadcast. And as I remind my students every week, as a good employee of Sky, watching for illegal streaming is theft. The other thing that I do every single session, what have you been watching, what have you been listening to this week, wherever it's been, and again, you're coming back to the point of they're educating us, and right, well, tell me about it then. What's so good about it? What's the editing like? What's the filming like? What's the music like? How are they doing different things? But your point about the gap and how do we bridge that gap, which is the name of this session, we like to have people from industry, people like Sonny coming in, say, to our media conference. The way these will be structured, we'll have probably 4 sessions, 2 big speakers. For instance, last year on the media one, we had Martin Tyler, the voice of the Premier League, now still doing commentary at the age of 864, but in America, or for American TV. And we also had Adrian Bevington, former chief exec of the FA, and has worked at many clubs and has worked in very many media roles within organisations. We have 2 panels as well, one of whom is alumni who are now working within the media, doing different things, and another one is the industry panel, which is people who are not our alumni, but for instance, one guy who came from over here, Bill Rice from the Sports Centre at BBC Manchester, he came over. We had a presenter from BBC Sport, we had somebody from the Manchester FA, and somebody who's got their own production company making content, streaming and audio and video. So we're finding out from them, what do you want our students to be able to do?
Yeah.
Because some of them are doing technical things, whether it's cameras, sound, lighting, editing, directing, producing. Some want to be presenters, some want to be reporters, some want to be commentators. So we've got that whole range there that we can do. You're going to ask me about netball now,
Well, I think Hannah was making some notes. Do you want to pick up on that point, Hannah? Were you making notes for this, or were you...
Well, I actually think soft skills are underrated.
Yeah.
Because actually, it's about you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can learn absolutely everything, but nothing goes wrong in the classroom, does it? You know, you've got to be out there. It's how you deal with problems, problem solving, how you are with people. Like, I always think that those soft skills
Yeah.
or technical skills can be taught.
I think it's a really interesting point. There was a debate on LinkedIn I think it was on Tuesday when I was doom scrolling through LinkedIn, which is my new favourite pastime, saying actually that soft skills maybe is now an unhelpful phrase talking about unhelpful language because actually they're so important. You know, you're right. The industry is changing so fast. We could talk about technology changes. We could talk about AI. We talk about cloud compute. We could talk about all sorts of things that are changing faster than ever before. And so we're going to have to keep learning and relearning as we
Everyone
employ. But
should keep
actually,
learning.
what should never change is your ability to deal with crisis, your ability to communicate, your ability, all these things that you talked about. So is soft skills the best name for that? Because maybe that's the most fundamental and important thing.
Well, it is because if people want to work with you, you're employable, right? So you can have all the technical skills in the world, but if you aren't a team player or if you aren't very nice to work with, then you're not going to be asked back.
Honestly, it's such a good point, and it's probably not one that we put enough focus on. You're absolutely right. I just want to ask, Eleanor, do you do any sort of module around kind of soft skills in your kind of course?
The closest we probably got to that, it was a module called professional film practice. We took it during year 1, and you could continue to take it in year 2. But even then, it didn't really cover it. It was more looking at the different roles within the industry and like the procedures and things like that. I mean, yeah, largely you're taught set etiquette and things like that when you're working with cameras, and obviously with that it's always like, you know, look after the people around you. But they don't explicitly say be nice or anything like that.
I mean, even just working in a bar or a restaurant on the weekends can give you these soft skills. You know, you don't have to be in industry all the time, and we always say that you should be, if you know, at weekends or if you are doing some freelance stuff in between studying, great. But yeah, even if you are working in retail, hospitality, these are amazing places to learn about difficult clients, difficult customers,
And you only get,
things
and
going
often
wrong.
if you've been invited in somewhere from, I remember when I was, a long time ago, not too long ago when I was in my career, you know, but even now when we employed runners, when you go in for that moment of experience, that's your chance to make a change, make an impact.
Yep.
Immediately inspire people with your personality and your character and your willingness to work hard, because that's noticed and observed.
Yeah.
Some of our best runners didn't usually show great editing skills, but they just had, you know, really good, you know, introp and personal and all that stuff. So, and they ones that got promoted quickest and got given real full-time jobs quickest.
In the past, when I've been in a position interviewing and then employing people, I've never employed a certificate. I've employed people. And normally you have to like a former boss of mine. He said to me once, I liked you when I first met you. I could tell straight away that, you know, you were a good guy and that you knew what you were talking about, and I'd heard what you did. So I knew you could do it, but I wanted to meet you to see what you were like. And that's why I employed you. Not because of what you can do, because I know that you can do that. I didn't need to interview you for that.
I'd love to just ask if there's any questions. We're going to run out of time in a minute.
Do you want to know about netball?
We'll come back. We'll close with that maybe.
Okay.
It sounds interesting. Does anyone on the floor have any questions for the panel? Any prospective student? Brilliant. Do you want to? There's a couple.
Yeah, there's a couple.
Go for it. You have to shout.
One thing to soft skills is that I think one key soft skill is step outside the comfort zone.
Yeah.
And how to build the that. Because that's the interesting thing about our industry, that it doesn't stop. It's always that, and you have to sort of be brave and step outside. But also not to kind of overstep. The question following up from that is how do you find how do you deal with people in the industry sharing their knowledge or their experience? Do you think they may protect it from what they share or not?
Oh, we're talking about gatekeepers
So
here.
Freelancers out there, there's also parts of the industry that doesn't go that well. And
Yeah.
they're probably afraid. They also need maybe a bit of skills gap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Moving on. How do you deal with that with entry-level jobs? You know, that it's not like freelancers sharing their knowledge and then things like that, you know, and the UB sits there, gets a freelance rate and say, you can do this.
There's a lot. I'll try and repeat the question. There's a lot in there, but reflecting on the fact that we work in a diverse industry of a lot of freelancers as well as staff, and whether people are willing to share that knowledge, or whether because they are potentially freelance, they're a bit more protective of that fearful for their own careers. What do people think? Do you think that's...
That's really difficult, right? So we launched a program, or we're trying to launch a program around trainee edit assistants. But in order to train them, they will be working with edit assistants who are freelance, who essentially we're training to increase the market, and it'll be difficult for them to get the next job and the next job. That is really, really difficult. What we found is mentorship works well to kind of separate out the kind of the training of the technical skills from the training of the soft skills and that sort of stuff. So we every time we bring a trainee in, we make sure that they have a buddy or a mentor for that period of time. We found that works well because usually mentors have that feeling of altruism where they want to kind of help and give back, and I think that kind of gets around it.
Thanks, Sonny. Was there another question? Yeah, go ahead.
So, when it comes to technical roles, would you say the industry is looking for like people to specialize or people to do multiple things? Because I do video and audio and like podcasts as well, but
Yeah.
camera and lighting is my main thing that I like to specialize in. But when you're looking for stuff, should you just show everything or should you specialize?
So the question was, when looking for technical roles, do we want multi-skilled people who can do a lot of things, or do we want specialisms? What do we think?
Yeah, I would say from the people that I speak to that are hiring, they are looking for people that have multiple skills. It depends what it is. It's very good to be specialised in what you do, but if you can do other things, you are more employable. And you can pick up, if it's a very small production, for example, you can take on more multiple roles, or you can ask for a higher day rate, right? Which is what it's all about. The more you learn, the more you earn. So that's just my take on it.
Is that on your badge?
I need to get T-shirts printed. Thanks for that. I'll get them done for the next show.
If you've got all those different skills, then you can obviously become more employable, because one day you might be making podcasts, the next day you're filming. I used to work at Yorkshire Television on sport, and we used to have a director there who would direct in the days when ITV had their own regional sports program, like the Goals on Sunday or the midweek programs. He would sometimes direct that. His main job there was also a director on Emmerdale. Now, you can't get much more different than directing Emmerdale and directing Sports Guys.
Brilliant. Right, I think we've run out of time. We're going to get... no one's actually throwing me off stage, but I'm sure we've overrun. But there was one more question.
Yeah,
Oh, no, we're not stopping until they
And then we'll finish with netball and football. Go on then.
Oh, there are tons of online. The problem is not a lot of people know where they are. Sorry, I'm not trying to butt in. I just want to, if you follow Production Futures, we can send you a load. Thanks for the shout out.
Let's repeat that. So there's a
the
job
technical training
just for the mic, yeah.
online. There are so many brands like Shaw, Brompton Technology, you name it. They all offer it, but it's on their website. Disguise, Pixera, if you are after technical skills, CAMSYS, I'll give you a list, so talk to me afterwards, but this is also part of the problem, is that if you know, right? So if you're in the industry in your first 5 years, you probably know, because you're going to trade shows, you're meeting all these people, things like this. If you don't know where they are, then that's what we're trying to bridge that gap a bit more, because it's free. So much of it is free. Loads of manufacturers offer free training, and there's loads of boot camps and all sorts of things. Sorry.
I'm being given the hurry up. So also Screen Skills website has a lot of very useful information about all the career pathways and the courses you might need to go on to get there, some of which are formal academic and some of which are not.
Sonny, you were going to say something there, sorry.
I was going to say Screen Skills.
Yeah.
Screen Skills is brilliant.
We're going to have to wrap up because we're overrun. Very quickly, in 30 seconds, netball, football.
Netball and Premier League football, what's the connection? Several years ago, we had a student who was looking to do a project for an assignment based around sport, a video assignment. And he had absolutely no interest whatsoever in netball, like a lot of people don't. And he was looking online and he saw that there was no online presence for Manchester Netball, whether it was social media or even the website. Went and did a story about them and then said, he was a multimedia student, can I start doing a website for you and making some content for you? And he did a cracking job. Now, he's a Sheffield United fan. He then got an internship at Sheffield United, working down there once a week. He graduated, he got a first, he walked straight into a job as a digital content creator at Sheffield United. Within a couple of years, 3 years I think, he was head of that department, and then he left there. He's from Sheffield United fan. He left there December last year. He's now in charge, doing similar down at Brentford, and the numbers that he's creating, they're absolutely fantastic.
Simon? No?
Jake.
No.
So
Brilliant. Great. There's a positive story for us to end on.
So his
Lovely.
attitude, he spotted something, a difference, spotted a gap in the market, went and did it, and because of what he'd done in one sport, totally going back to your point, totally transferable, doing something in another sport, very, very different styles of content, but the basics were the same, and he's got a fantastic job.
Thank you very much. So we're not going to run away. We're going to, when we come off stage, we'll go and hang out over by that very bright orange table in case you want to carry the conversation on, because some of you may have further questions for anyone here. If you've got 5 minutes to hang around, folks. Would you all do me a favour and thank the wonderful panel? Thank Chris, Hannah, Eleanor, Sonny. Give them a round of applause for their time. And thanks very much.
Thanks.
Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you.